Hello, friends. Welcome back to Your Age is Not Your Cage with Carla Allen. Okay, today, get ready. You might even grab a Kleenex for this one. Today, I am talking with Emily Cobb. Emily is the daughter-in-law of a dear friend of mine, Shauna, that I've known since we were in junior high or high school. And we are going to talk today in great detail about her family and specifically more about their amazing miracle child, Owen, or as we call him, Mighty O. And you will soon realize why we call him that. You're going to be in absolute awe of the remarkable courage, dedication, perseverance, and faith that the Cobb family exhibits every single day. This will probably bring you to tears, but I'll also encourage you like never before to never give up and never take anything for granted, not one day. And I will tell you, Emily and her husband, Justin, are two of the most courageous, selfless, loving parents you will ever meet. And so I am excited to introduce you to Emily as she shares her family's story and the ways God has moved in it in such huge ways. They will give you encouragement on how we can walk out too in holy boldness and in faith, no matter what life may throw us. So let's get ready. Here we go. Here is Emily Cobb. Hi, Emily. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, Carla.
Hey, I am so happy you're here. And I have to share with everyone that when I started this podcast, I knew that you were going to be one of my very first guests. I wrote you down on my list immediately because this podcast is all about trying to share stories of women with encouraging, just courageous stories. And you and your family are examples of one of the just bravest, most courageous, Jesus loving family I've ever known. So I am so glad you're here, and I'm excited for people to meet you and hear your story. And so just give us a few things about yourself, and then we will dig right into your story.
Sure. Well, as you know, I'm married to Justin, which is Shauna, one of your good friends, her son. And Justin and I have been together for a long time, married almost 10 years. Now we have two wonderful children together, Owen and Madeline. I currently homeschool Owen. We're going to start with Madeline here soon. I work in the child welfare. Been working, like with CPS files and children in that respect as well for many years. I have a huge heart for children and protecting and being, I don't know, I guess just like a mama bear to all kiddos. There's a lot of children out there who need so much more than what they're given. And so, we've been given this wild ride with Owen and all his medical, and it's really driven us to be stronger parents. And, you don't really know what you're able to handle until you've just been given it.
That's so true. And I think once the listeners hear your story, they'll be amazed by going, how does she do all that? And,
Right.
your husband too. How do they both do all that? Plus, what you're enduring with caring for a special needs child. And so let's dig right into that and just start talking about what life has looked like for y'all for the last let's see, Owen's 7.5. So what life has looked like for you, even a little prior to that.
Yeah, I'd say 8.5 years.
Yeah. So I want you to start off by sharing Owen's fetal surgery, because I remember, and Emily mentioned that I know her mother-in-law, and Shauna is one of my dear friends that I've known since I was 15. And I still remember when Emily had that surgery. I still remember that day. I remember praying. And it was just such an incredible, I could explain it in so many ways, incredible, scary,
Oh,
beautiful.
all of it.
Yes, I mean, every word can describe that. So share with them about the fetal surgery, when it took place.
Okay.
I mean, just kind of walk through, because I don't think a lot of people have ever known anyone, that has gone through that.
Yeah, I do. I share bits and pieces of that story with people quite frequently, actually, if they're interested and they ask. But so I was actually diagnosed at week 17 of pregnancy. As you kind of normally progress through your pregnancy, they found an abnormality in my blood work, which proceeded into some more blood work and then an amniocentesis. And then he's like, well, yeah, there's an issue with the spine. So we were referred to a maternal fetal medicine doctor who was able to diagnose the spina bifida with a simple ultrasound. And then we got transferred to Texas Children's Hospital then at this point. And I'm right around 20, 21 weeks along. I go through Texas Children's battery of tests, and we scheduled the surgery for November 9th of 2015. And it was a big surgery, very risky. They definitely still call it experimental at that point. We had some insurance hiccups, which are still current to this day. Insurance is not huge on approving it from time to time. So it almost didn't happen, but thankfully it did. The surgery was, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours long, and it was a very rough recovery. Um, they literally, they did a C-section on me. They took out the uterus and cut that open, and they were able to align Owen's little tiny, tiny little body. He was maybe the size of a banana by that point. They put his little spine up there in the top of the uterus, and the neurosurgeon went in and corrected the defect, or it's called a myelomeningocele, which is basically a big bundle of nerves. And he was able to close that up. They put him back in and sewed me back up, and Owen made his own amniotic fluid over.
That is just, I have to stop you in that, because I'm
Yeah,
going to ask you. I mean, because when you listen to that story,
I know, it's wild, isn't it?
I know you probably told it so many times, and
Yeah,
because I do remember it,
yeah,
but to hear it and think she had a C-section,
I
because I
did.
I had 2 C-sections, so I am
Yes.
familiar with that. And they put him back in, and it's
They
like,
put him back in, and
oh my
honestly, I
goodness.
misspoke. They put in like sterile saline, but then over time, he makes, the baby will make their own little amniotic
Mhm.
fluid in there. And that's the part that's so risky, because you have a large open incision on the uterus while your baby is growing. So they gave me some really, really strong medications, like for about a week inpatient. And, I was, of course, bedridden. I couldn't keep anything down for the first 3 or 4 days.
Did you even
Really
get
sick.
up? Like, were you able to get up?
Oh no, I wasn't allowed. No, I had a
So
fully catheter
yeah,
in.
that's what
I
I was
was
about to
had,
ask.
like pain medication pump round the clock. I had an arterial IV. I had a two regular IV. I had IVs everywhere. And they were monitoring him. I had the monitors on him, round the clock. Like he was actually pretty wiggly and moving once all the anesthesia wore off, but it was some uh, pain that I'll never forget.
I mean, I know none of us can even imagine what that pain must have been like. Let me ask you, had your physician ever performed this kind of procedure before?
Absolutely. Yes. We
Okay.
were the 29th pair at Texas Children's Hospital to have open fetal surgery.
Uh,
So Owen's defect is quite large. So if you can imagine the spine, you have your lumbar section, and then you have your sacral section, which is the bottom that goes down, to your rear end. His starts at L2 and goes all the way down the sacrum. So he had a very large defect. So it was a very large bubble, a bundle of nerves. And so they had to do the open fetal surgery versus something called fetoscopic, which is sometimes the defect is smaller and they can go in with just probes and not have to, kind of like orthoscopic and
Mm-hmm.
not have to cut you open. So mine was a bit riskier, but that's just, if we were going to do it, that was the only option. So as the week progressed, I was inpatient for a week and I was able to get the Foley catheter out and then walk around and, you have to do all your business before you can leave the hospital, make sure
Right.
everything's working appropriately. And on the other end, Shauna flies in and she's literally my babysitter. I literally had to have someone with me around the clock because if anything went wrong, we had a 30-minute drive to the hospital and we're good.
Yeah.
I was received by Justin and Shauna and taken very well care of and monitored weekly with scans until, anything needed to happen. So,
Okay. So that was at 25 weeks, right?
yes,
With
25
Owen?
weeks and 5 days was the day of the surgery.
Okay. So take us forward from that. How long from that to when Owen was actually
Right.
born?
So it's standard procedure to have a 5 to 6 week post-op MRI just to see how baby has done. With this particular surgery, the neurosurgeon goes in to close up the spine. So it allows the cerebrospinal fluid to flow just in the body and not mix with the amniotic fluid. And that's what was going on prior. So he was able to get a nice tight seal, is what they call it, on the incision, get it all nice and tight and clean. And Owen has something called a Chiari malformation, type 2, also very common. It's when the hindbrain, the cerebellum is pulled down from all of that big bundle of nerves that was at the bottom of his spine. So it literally just pulls the nervous system down. And that was able to reverse. So once you get everything back in place, the spine is closed up, then we were able to see that the Chiari malformation had completely reversed, which is wonderful. That's a huge goal of what we were wanting to accomplish. And, give him that best chance of just give him that best chance of being able to develop as long as he could in there.
Yeah.
While
That must have
possible.
been such an encouragement and just, such a gift at that time after,
It was.
going through all of this.
It was a little bittersweet because then they're like, hey, the Chiari reversed, but on the same time, your amniotic fluid is extremely low. So that was a red flag. And that's part of the concern with having fetal surgery is, are you going to rupture perhaps? Are you going to leak fluid? These are the things that they watch for and why we had weekly scans. So my fluid was low. We let it go for 1 week. He said, drink a ton of water. Hopefully this isn't the start of preterm labor. So let's just watch you closer. So I went back the next week to a regular doctor to be scanned. And unfortunately, my fluid was still gone, like almost all of it. So he sent me directly to the hospital and pumped me full of fluids and all of that. I was able to stay there for about 4 or 5 days before contractions began, inpatient. And then I guess it was just after, that was around Christmas, right after Christmas. And because he was born January 3rd, definitely via emergency C-section, run me down the hallway kind of surgery. Justin had just gone to pick up Shauna at the airport, and Shauna had a cold. I'll never forget it. And Justin was tired. Or wait, I don't know if it's Justin or Shauna who was sick. I forget. Maybe it was both of them. They were both tired and worn down from holidays and stuff. And they laid down on the couch, and then I'm trying to get a hold of somebody.
So you couldn't get a hold of them when all this was going on?
Well, what was happening is I couldn't feel the contractions per se, but the nurses are like, are you feeling any of this? And they're in and out the room pretty frequently. And my friend Jackie, her daughter was inpatient at Texas Children's at this time. So she was visiting me in my room and she's watching this and she's like, hand me your phone. I need to call your husband. So she's trying to call Justin. Turns out she calls his office number. And so she's like, I can't get a hold of him. and I'm not paying attention because there's all these nurses and doctors on me, like, I think we got to go. And I said, wait, I got to get a hold of my husband. And I said, will you wait? And they're all like, no. I mean, it was like 6 of them who turned and said no. I mean, they're stripping me down. They're undoing wires. They're getting with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting a little nervous at this point, but we got a hold of everybody, and Justin just goes in one car and Shauna comes, a few minutes later in the next, and he was able to make it for Owen just in time. But
Oh my goodness. Was he in there with you?
he was
Okay.
there. And then I'll never forget it. The nurse or the doctor, it was 2 doctors who delivered Owen. I still have contact with her today, which is great. She was like, "Oh, Mrs. Cobb, you were definitely, my uterus was tearing open." She's like, "It's green. I've never seen this color," but she's like, "We got him just in time."
Oh, praise
So
the
it
Lord.
was, I know it was scary. It still gives me chills today, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So tell me what day that was. What is
that was
the day
January
of his birth?
January 3rd of 2016.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So moving forward from that, which I can't imagine, how much did Owen weigh when he was born?
He was 4 pounds and 2 ounces.
So he was, I mean, a good little
He,
size.
he was pretty
Yeah.
close to on target for his weight. He really
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was,
Um,
tiny little thing, but yes, yes.
yes. Okay. So as we go from there, and I'm assuming he stayed in NICU for a
Oh yeah.
while.
39 days. If I want to add one little point, I think you're going to
Yes, please.
get a kick out of this. So January 3rd is an anniversary of my dad's death.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry.
no, that's okay, but it makes it better now.
Mm.
It was the 19th anniversary of my dad's death, the day that Owen came.
And so yes, what a beautiful
Mm,
gift
it
on,
was
yeah, I mean, it makes that day just such a special,
so much brighter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for
And
sharing that.
as Owen is grown, he has like this sweet little kind of crooked heart birthmark on his cheek. So it's I don't know, it's just kind of sweet.
That's a little angel kiss.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
it's the significance of the importance of that day and the
Yes,
blessing that the Lord gave you
you
for
got
Owen
it.
to be born that
Because
day.
it was never intended. His
Yeah.
original birthday was like February 18th, I think.
Uh-huh.
So, and he was discharged on February 11th, about a week before. So he spent, 39 days in the NICU.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me, then from there, and he's back home.
Right.
Tell me kind of what it was like being at home
Ugh,
with him. It had to be. I mean, if it's me thinking about it with my little newborns, I was already a
right.
mess, not knowing what to do. And mine were healthy. My son had lost weight in the hospital and went
Sure.
to go home, and there was things with
We
him.
went through that too.
It was just nerve-wracking. And then you get home with this little being and you're like, where's all the nurses? I need help
I
again.
know. I
And so
know.
I picture you being
Yeah.
a completely, different type
Fragile.
situation. Right.
And he
How
has
did
this
you,
huge incision on his back that
yeah,
Carla was like, it was paper thin. You could like this little bubble, it formed into a bubble and it got corrected, at age 3, but it was, I mean, you could hold this little bottom. It's just it was tough to learn how to hold him properly, because I mean, I don't think he felt it per se, but it was such a delicate area on his back. And when he was so small, it took up about half of his, half
yes.
his
And
back.
I remember the pictures of that too. And,
Yes.
it
And
just
the way we
would
had to
bring
put his
you to
diaper on or
tears.
clothes. And
Yeah.
yeah, it
I mean,
was
I would look at that and just, have tears because I'm like this little bitty baby,
yes, just
Uh,
fragile as ever. But um, he grew in his own way. I mean, you say we were home. We had days at home, but I was pretty much at the hospital at least once a week,
yeah.
sometimes 2 or 3 times a week early on. Um, we acquired quickly when he was in the NICU. I think we acquired 4 or 5 specialists right away. urology, and then your neurosurgeon, and your orthopedics, because Owen had bilateral club feet. So his little legs and feet were all twisted in, and that's can be common with spina bifida. About 50% of the children born with it have it. So they were trying to work on, just trying to relax his little leg muscles and ankles. And so we had a lot of doctor appointments, a lot of scanning, a lot of things that they, want to watch, and just watch constantly. Every 3 months, we were at some specialist appointment, but I also had therapist in the home, a physical therapist. We had occupational therapist, just hands on this kid, getting him moving, just making sure that he could, use his little body in the best way that he could. So he wasn't, you would consider him about 2 months delayed,
Mm-hmm.
when babies are born premature, and it took some time for him to catch up. But, I really feel like, looking back on it, we had so much help. We had the proper people helping us, and it was so much, but it was okay because I could trust the doctors. I could trust the people that were coming into our home helping us with him, because he was so unique, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And you
Um,
needed that peace, the peace of
yeah,
knowing you had all
it was
this care.
overwhelming,
Yeah,
having someone in your house all the time, and all you really want to
gotcha.
do is walk around in your robe and try
Yeah,
to feed your baby and keep
right.
up with, whatever housework and the bottles, and, breastfeeding was a significant challenge. And just, he was so tiny and weak, and he was, tube fed for so many weeks in there, and he just never really wanted to. I don't think he just quite didn't get it. So
You probably had trouble latching, probably just couldn't
exactly. Yeah.
really get the strength to do that.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so before we move further from that,
Yeah.
because we did not talk about the fact that Owen was diagnosed with spina bifida. Not everybody knows what that is. If you could share what that is, and then um,
Right.
maybe share the other medical diagnoses that he has had along the way. I know the list is long,
Right.
and then I want to get into talking a little bit about some of these surgeries and things he's gone through
Okay.
in his short little life.
Right. So spina bifida is actually a really common birth defect. We don't know where it comes from. They did genetic testing. They do all these things to try to figure it out. But they really call it environmental factors. There's really no rhyme or reason for it. Um, but it's a defect in the spine as you're developing. So the spine develops in gestation between week 3 and 4. So by the time we knew I was pregnant around 6 or 7 weeks, the spine is formed, and that damage was done. Like,
Mm,
we had no idea of
never
knowing
thought
anything.
about that.
No, it was done. So when the spine forms, I've been explained that it's like a horse's mane. If you can imagine a flowing mane of hair, and that's like your spinal column forming all those hairs. And somewhere in between that week 3 and 4, it just didn't smooth out. It bundled up at the base of his lumbar region, and it got confused.
Yeah.
So it made this little bundle of nerves. And so at L2 on your spine, it's going to affect every nerve and every function from there down. So if you think about it, basically it's from his belly button down. So
Hmm.
anything below there is going to be compromised. So it's well, but then also it affects the entire nervous system, because it affects his brain, his spinal cord, and then all of his nerves and bowel and bladder and leg muscles. It's pretty encompassing condition. So it does bring a lot of diagnoses with it. There's 3 forms of spina bifida, and Owen has the most severe, called myelomeningocele. And like I said earlier, he was born with bilateral club feet. So if you can imagine, when he's developing his spine, that if there's a bundle of nerves in your spinal cord, then it's going to tighten up those leg muscles too. So
Mm.
with him, it just affected both feet um, as well. So he had the turned in ankles, and he looked a little scrunched when he came out. and his little nose was squished to the left. And but so with that, other diagnoses, there's something called hydrocephalus, which is too much pressure or fluid on the brain, causing the brain to swell. And most of kids with hydrocephalus and spina bifida tend to have larger heads in general. They're because of, I don't really know why, it's just really common with the condition, but there's some genetics too. Justin and I both have larger heads, but Owen's is, unique, a little bit larger than the average. So, and I think that that's kind of has a prominent forehead too. It pushes out. It's just the structure of how his little skull developed. But we early on, he was scanned actually a lot on his head when he was real small too, because they watch the ventricles to make sure that they don't get too enlarged. If you have too much fluid, it's going to affect the body, and you'll notice some really significant signs of hydrocephalus, and we've experienced that to a really shocking point. So we watched that over
something
time.
that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
is that something that affects every child with spina bifida, or no?
It most likely, I would say the vast majority. It's really quite rare if you don't have hydrocephalus.
Okay.
So I would say the vast majority. So he already was kind of born with a larger head, so we scanned him more frequently. That was something they do every couple of days in the NICU. They're scanning the fontanelles and just trying to make sure that everything's as it needs to be, because if they spike fast, and that's alarming, they have to go do surgery. But over time, we would start to notice things with Owen's little eyes. His eyes would do something called sunsetting. They would just kind of pulsate in his, from time to time. He was still happy and whatever. He never really got to a horrible fussy phase like they can. But I would keep taking him back to the doctor. He's like, no, it's a little early. We're not gonna treat him just yet. They would measure his little head with the tape, frequently.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever had a concern, Dr. Whitehead, who's our neurosurgeon, has done 4 surgeries on him. He bring him in, and we're not gonna, let's not,
He didn't want you delaying.
make sure. Exactly.
Right.
With these tiny ones. So
yes.
He did the fetal surgery on the spine, and then, we ended up treating for hydrocephalus, meaning so sometimes these kiddos go through a spike in head circumference. Their head just grows too fast, and the body can't catch up in time. So with that, he had too much pressure on the brain. So we treated for hydrocephalus at age 5 months. So this was June of 2016, and did that surgery, and that was a lot.
You're talking about the surgery where they had to drill into.
Yes, we treated. Yes, correct. So a lot of people, there's 2 options to treat for hydrocephalus, and you can either do a shunt, which is more common, what people are more familiar with. That's when you have a tube going from the brain down into the belly to drain the cerebrospinal fluid appropriately out of the body, directly, from brain to the belly, so they can, just urinate it out. But with Owen, we were really against having to put some, foreign objects in his body if we could do it. So there was a newer surgery, also again kind of experimental. It's called an ETV. I forget the formal word of it, but basically, if you can imagine a colander, how it has holes in it, right? So he goes into the floor of the 3rd ventricle of the brain. I don't know where that is, but, and he pokes a couple of holes in there, and then he cauterizes it to make sure it's going to stay open. And so that allows the fluid to drain out naturally.
And so I can't even wrap mind around that. It is
right.
That's
he
just
has this
so
tiny little incision in the shape of a C on his head. They had to shave his head in one part. They did like a big strip. And yeah, no, they drilled into his into his head. And so with that, it was they didn't really warn us the aftermath of what that would look like post-op. I mean, Owen, it was so shocking to see him with his head was quite large at this point because it had grown so much, and then it was so full of fluid. And with babies, they have that soft spot that hasn't come together yet. Now, mind
Mm-hmm.
you, Owen's didn't come together till like probably almost 2. Like his
Okay.
was way, way soft for way long, very normal. But his soft spot was so squishy before, and then after surgery, it literally he had a sunken cave
Oh my
in
goodness.
between his fontanelles. It was alarming, and that was right after surgery, and nobody warned us about that.
Yeah, that would have
So
been a good thing to know. Yeah.
yes, and if
Yeah.
I chat with any moms or anything on a social media group about they're about to have their surgery on their baby, then I warn them about that, truly, because
Yeah.
that was shocking to see. But Owen was um he was a hot mess for a few days, just allowing the pressure in his brain and his body to just realign. We
Mm-hmm.
needed to give him some time, so we were inpatient about a week with a lot of round the clock vomiting. He really couldn't keep Nutch down, and just he just needed some time to readjust to the new
Yeah.
Owen.
And sweet, sweet baby boy. I mean, we're
Yes,
not talking about an adult here. We're talking about what? 5 month old?
5 months.
5 month old baby.
5 months old. But
Oh,
you know what? After a few weeks of that, he brightened up. I mean, he was such a sweet baby anyways, but man, he turned a corner that he was able to just see the world in a new way. Like I didn't realize how compromised he was, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
until afterwards. But um, it turns out at that point we were in and out of the hospital a couple times after that surgery, because it turned out from the anesthesia and things like that, these babies with spina bifida, they can have chronic constipation
Mm,
because again, the nerves are all affected from that belly
right.
button area down. So we had to go back to the hospital. He wasn't able to keep any formula, anything down. And it turns out he needed to be cleaned out from top to bottom. So we went back inpatient, and I went through that experience, and then it was even better after that, because then he was just happy go lucky. And I had my sweet baby back who wanted to interact and do play, and just
Right.
so
Yeah.
he came
I
back.
just, just think about all of that. And then
Mhm.
again, just another gift along the way for you and Justin of Owen turning this corner,
Mhm.
just so thankful for each of those moments. And so as we go forward, I know that he had some things going on around age 3.
Yeah.
And if there's anything in between that you want to share, but otherwise, let's talk about as he kept going forward
Mhm.
in that.
Yeah, after 5 months or so, I think it was about 16, 18 months old. At this point, he was doing well physically. He was starting to, stand upright. He sat up around 9 months. He started to kind of army crawl around a year, and then start being really upright about 16 or 18 months, we got him some leg braces to help with, when you have club feet, it just weakens everything. So the braces help him stand up, and we utilized a stander in the home. We actually took some steps, using a chair. And then once he's more upright, we kind of noticed that his gait was a little off, and he seemed a little tight again, like his body's starting to tighten up. And actually, at this point, too, we had just started to catheterize him because we had noticed some urology issues, again, very common. So it's called neurogenic bowel and bladder. So it affects, functioning of those areas. So we started to catheterize him. And so we began that at age, I think, 16 months. And that'll be a forever task. But we noticed his toes were kind of starting to curl in just a little bit, and he just seemed tight. He was walking stiff. So we had an MRI, and it's something called tethered spinal cord. It's actually really common, and most of these babies are born with a tethered cord, meaning it's tighter in one area if it's on a side, or what have you. And they actually found a large syrinx on his spine too, which is a fluid filled sac. I forget, I think it was like 9 or 11 millimeters long. It was really long, very thin, but it was definitely impinging on his spinal cord. So at age 3, we had to do it. It's very routine surgery.
Okay.
Just, it's just do a tethered cord release, go in, and the neurosurgeon clips it and kind of allows the body to loosen up again, and it heals over time. And so we did that. It was very routine. We were inpatient 4 or 5 days, and have to keep your 3-year-old laying still as a board in a hospital bed, and IVs and pain meds, rotating Tylenol and ibuprofen, and trying to entertain him. And Justin was such a champ. He was there every day with Owen, because I'm toting around Miss Madeline. She's about 7 weeks old, just given birth to her. And she did her NICU stay of 17 days because she came early. But so about 10 days after his initial surgery, we were at home, and his little spinal cord, his incision was not healing right.
Mm.
So it was a small hole. First it was a little redness, and then it just kind of grew and grew. And we were taking pictures and sending it to the neurosurgery team every day. And they're like, it's okay, it's gonna close, it's gonna close. And I'm like, his clothes are wet, he's leaking fluid, he's leaking
Oh,
stuff. And I'm like,
gosh.
this can't be right. And they're like, okay, get him in the bathtub, clean it out. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right,
How
we're doing it.
frustrating.
We're
Yeah.
doing whatever you want. Justin and I are like, this isn't right. This isn't right. So, we never thought we would see this, but the whole hydrocephalus point, we thought we had gotten over that, but we saw these hydrocephalus symptoms now through the opening in his spine. So his spine was basically exposed to a point. He did end up having an infection in the dura of the spine that happened, I guess, some point during the surgery. What is it, 5% or less chance of getting a post-op infection.
Mm.
But Owen's laying on the ground, he couldn't even sit up anymore.
Mm. I know that's so
It
probably
was,
the memories are so
yeah,
hard.
it was so hard. We did everything that the doctors told us to do, and it just wasn't getting better. And he couldn't sit up, and he just started projectile vomiting everywhere. And I said, we're going into the hospital. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't stopping. So we took him into the ER, and they admitted us immediately. And, they did surgery the next morning to correct the original defect. And this time they put in 3 drains to help fluid flow out in all these different directions. And it was a much, much bigger surgery. It was a much bigger incision. And we were inpatient then, I think, for 26, I forget, I think it was 26 days. Justin was with them, or it was around the clock. It was a huge step up from that first routine surgery. So it got scary. It got real scary because they had to give him 3 huge, heavy antibiotics, around the clock that just made him super sick. It made him puffy. It made him throw up. It made him fever. I mean, the kid had 104 fever, and just he was so sick.
And here
It's
you
amazing how
are with a newborn,
a newborn.
which we all know what that feels like. And then
Yes.
on top of that, just the helplessness of
Oh,
not being able to just, truly help your child. And I'm sure a million times over, you and your husband wished it upon yourself, not your child. I don't know. I hear people say that. Is that anything that ever crossed your mind during that time?
oh, I wanted to take it from him, of course, but
Yeah.
I don't even know that I had that mental capacity because I was so tired. I
I know.
had Madeline, and
Yeah.
I was just in an automatic like zombie phase of I got to get Justin clean clothes. What supplies do they need from the house? I was back and forth, and that's all that I wanted to do was just make sure I could provide for my boys.
Hmm.
Um, Owen didn't really want to eat. He was still on like a high calorie formula. He ate some minor crunchy foods at age 3. Eating for him has been quite a task growing up, but we found a life-changing speech therapist who did some techniques on him for a better part of 2 years and just completely changed the structure of his mouth. Again, from issues with Chiari and just nervous system issues. Owen had a tiny mouth that was really tight muscles, and he couldn't eat for like 3 years.
Mm.
It's just nuts. But
And did he
it was
eat through a tube during that time? What?
no, he did a high calorie formula like Pediasure.
Okay.
Or we had another prescription formula too that we gave him, but it was so filling, and he didn't want any other food, and it had its own icky side effects, and it was processed and just not what we really wanted to provide for him. But he was so tiny and he was hard to gain weight. He was a failure to thrive baby, and I was like, I hate that diagnosis because it feels like I wasn't doing what I'm supposed to be doing for him.
Yeah.
But I mean, people say, how do you do it all? And you just do it. You don't question it. I mean, you question doctors and you ask the things, but you just kind of get in a mode of, you've got it in front of you. You just got to tackle it,
Yeah.
one day at a time. And you
Yeah.
have family support and your faith and your trust in these physicians. And, Texas Children's is absolutely one of the best for sure, the country, if not the world, especially for spina bifida. So that was covered for us. I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to
Yeah.
wonder if we needed to go elsewhere. So
Right. What another just, a piece to
yeah,
be able to have in that. And
huge.
it just, yeah, it's so huge in this situation you're in.
You got
So
it.
then you're beyond that.
Mhm.
And then I would love to switch gears in that a little bit and talk about like what a typical day in the life of Emily, Justin, Owen, and Madeline looks like, because it is
Sure.
hard probably for anyone. I'm imagining it's hard for the listeners to just wrap their brain around what does this look like day in and day out now
Right,
for
right.
them.
Well, Justin and I we say we never left the NICU.
Mm.
So if anybody's familiar with the NICU life, there's nurses around all the time, of course, but for a particular baby, there's some sort of medical intervention every 3 to 4 hours. If it's a medication to be given or you're checking something, there's always something going on. So with Owen, I would still say every 3 to 4 hours, he's going to need either catheterization to empty his bladder, or we do give him a medication around 12:30 to help, with a later bathroom routine we do in the evening. It's a very timed medication. Um, there are things that, we wake up, the first thing we got to do, everyone goes to the restroom. We have to, cath Owen and make sure we get that pressure off his bladder. And, we cath him every 3 to 4 hours. So 4 to 5 times a day, we do that. We do breakfast and then he has to put on his braces. It's taken us years, but Owen wears AFOs and SMOs, which are specific hard plastic braces fitted to his feet to help stabilize his ankle joints, his feet, and up his leg bones. They come up just to under his knee. So he can put on his socks now by himself and put the braces on. We have shoes that he wears indoor only. And then so it's taken us a really long time to get him to be able to do that, to fully dress himself and fully, clothe himself, shoes included. It's kind of surprising that doctors and nurses are so surprised that he can do that by himself. And I'm like, I don't understand how he can't do it, just because he's a little bit more unique, or he's got braces. So he's got to learn to put them on,
Right.
it's natural for us to do it. And everybody's like, well, because everybody's asking what activities of the ADLs, activities of daily living, can he do by himself? And he can do almost all of it.
Well, and because his parents believe in that, and they
Yes.
know that he's capable. And I am betting that you and Justin want him to be self-sustainable as
As
he grows and not rely on
absolutely.
just you and other care. So I
You
mean,
got it.
that is
Because,
just amazing.
it's been frustrating and it's taken a lot of patience, but I mean, what else are we to do as parents is to help them be as self-sufficient and as possible. I mean, who
Yeah,
cares if you're in a wheelchair
right,
or,
right.
you
So
know,
what does it look like after Owen dresses himself,
yeah.
and from there,
I mean, it's
what's next?
typical. I mean, breakfast and you get dressed and, you brush your teeth and, if we do some errands, we do physical therapy 1 hour a week. We do homeschooling when it's flexible for us. Justin and I have built our life to be flexible. So we scooped him out of public school a couple of years ago, and they weren't able to fulfill his educational needs. That we could see, he was also missing a ton of school for appointments and therapies and all the doctors and stuff. So, we both have jobs that are flexible. We can drop everything if we need to, including schooling, and take care of stuff if we need to. But right now we have one hour of physical therapy a week for him. Um, and all the other stuff, he eats 3 meals a day. We do the snacks. We have to make sure that he's standing enough during the day or not sitting too much, because he doesn't have much of a cushion on his rear end and he's very susceptible to skin breakdown and wounds. We've experienced that on his feet and his bum, and those are scary in its own sense. So we have special cushions at his desk chair, at the table chair, in his wheelchairs. He has to sit on special things. He's got to get moving, get that blood flowing. We
Mhm.
have to make lots of reminders of how he's standing, his positioning and posture and all that. He wears a back brace now too, because he has neuromuscular scoliosis, which is different than what most people think of scoliosis, which is the idiopathic version. Neuromuscular scoliosis is common when someone else has another underlying condition, such as spina bifida. So his is very progressive and aggressive. So we wear a brace in hopes that we don't have to do another spinal surgery, but that's definitely very, very likely in our future.
Is it
But
something they tell you? Is it just based on kind of what direction it goes, or is it something they
correct.
say this is probably in the next 2 years, 5 years?
They can't say that per se, but once it hits a certain degree of curve,
Okay.
I think over 50 degrees is when they start throwing out the word surgery and the different types of things that we can do to correct it, because they know that 50% of kiddos who get neuromuscular scoliosis, excuse me, 50% of children who have spina bifida get this type of scoliosis. So we
Okay.
have that. And the other fact is that it is progressive and it's not
Okay.
going to stop.
Okay.
So it's on a
And
mission.
share with them, the listeners, that what am I trying to say? What this brace looks
Yeah,
like. Is it just a little bitty brace that's on the bottom of your back? Is it a hard brace,
right.
soft brace? Because I've
It
seen,
is.
and I
This sucker.
know what it is.
Whew, it's a hard plastic brace. We did this really cool scanning thing with an iPad. It was really challenging to get the actual curvature of his body. Owen has a unique little trunk. He's thin and so he's bony. His little ribs are sticking out. They call it the Swiss cheese brace because there's so many different holes in it for Owen, like breathing holes for one, and two, one around his little rib on one side that pokes out. It's padded on the inside, but it's hard plastic. And I mean, I literally have to strap him in and crank this Velcro strap.
Mm,
And in the beginning, it was so hard for me to just sit there and strap in my kid.
mm.
But um, over time, we see that it's going to help slow the curve.
And the brace, does it go from his waist to how
Um,
high?
Actually, it's really odd shaped because one, it goes up to his left, underneath his left armpit, and it's not this perfectly clean brace that you would picture. It
Okay.
really is trying to put pressure underneath, one armpit and at the hip of
Mm,
the opposite.
okay.
So it's really trying to push pressure in two areas to straighten up the spine. I have some really impressive x-rays of him in a brace and then out of the brace, and you can see this wonderful S that has curved when he's out of the brace, and then when you in the brace, it's almost perfectly straight. It's
Okay.
just amazing to see. But it actually has to go below the hip bones, because if your hips are in alignment, then your spine's not in alignment.
Okay. How
So
long
it's
is he in the brace, and does he put it on willingly now, or is it still
oh,
a
it's
battle?
willingly now. We worked up to it. The prescription is 18 hours a day. Does that happen? No. And I will be the first to tell the doctor, and I'll be like, you know what? I'll give you up to 15 hours because I'm not going to break his spirit. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want him to, um, you know, I don't want him to have an adverse effect to it because it is going
Yes.
to help us for a while. Sorry, this brings up a lot of the
That's
past.
okay.
So,
That's okay.
um,
And I know and I understand, and I mean I understand that this is so hard to bring up and talk about. And the beautiful thing in all of it is that you talking and sharing can help any other parents going through
it
this.
does. It really
Because
does.
if they knew you and they knew Justin, oh my goodness, they would just be inspired so much and encouraged
Thank you.
by the selfless, loving, trusting, faithful parents you've been. And just in that, I know that's all so difficult. And since we're here now, share like what are some of your most difficult obstacles, challenges, struggles, whatever you may call it. And then we're going to talk about some wins and
Yeah.
some
Oh,
joys and blessings, because there's so many of
there's
them.
so many. They way outweigh all
Yes,
the
exactly.
scary things because one thing I've learned of being a medical mom is that the scary parts do end. Like
Yes.
that
Amen.
super stressful, awful, dark places that your mind goes, those do tend to end. But you have to almost train your brain to just not go there. You can't always go to those dark
Hmm.
places because it's very easy to. So I've definitely gone through periods of that in the past 8 years, but um Owen is now 7.5. He's such a trooper, and I may give you some of the wins and negatives at the same time because
That's
they
okay. We can go
go
over them all at one time.
hand in hand. This kid is, um, we've strapped him in these leg braces and this back brace, and we've, learning to catheterize him. He was young and it didn't really affect him so much, but he's such a trooper and he's very cooperative. We explain things to him. But he's at an age right now where he'll have these moments where he's just like, Mom, am I ever gonna grow out of spina bifida? And it's just, how do you tell your son? Yeah, I don't know when he's gonna understand it, but I said, buddy, you were born with this condition. This is how God intended you to be.
Mm.
Um, I said, you're so much like us, but your body doesn't work the way maybe mine does, or your sisters, or you just have some small differences, but we're
Mm.
all still the same person in general. So he's having a hard time understanding. He wants to grow up and grow out of spina bifida, and that's like my biggest heartache right now.
Yeah.
He'll have a moment, it could be anywhere, and it's just you just got to talk him out of it, or talk him down, not out of it, but he's got to come to understanding terms in his mind, and he's having more of them. Like, he doesn't want to have it. And
Yeah.
even his little sister, she's like, well, I want to have spina bifida, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, because I know that I give him more attention than her, but from time to time, she gets her time too, but that's uh this phase in our life right now is honestly what I would like. I would have bad dreams about when I was pregnant with him. I was like, there's going to be a time where he's going to start to understand or wonder, why is he different? And he sees it. It's pretty quite obvious.
Yeah. And start
But
asking questions.
yeah,
And you want, as a mom,
yeah,
the answers that are going to comfort and soothe and assure him.
that's it.
And, I feel confident that as these questions keep coming up, that the Lord is going to bring you the wisdom
Yeah,
and the words, and you are going to say the things that bring him comfort and assurance. And he is so beautifully and uniquely made, which you already know.
yeah,
Uh, but he is, and my prayer too is that he sees that. Even if he looks a little different, he can still make a difference in the lives of others
absolutely.
in so many, and he already has.
He
He
does. He
already
lights up
has.
any room that kid
Yes,
comes into. I mean, truly.
he
He
does. And we're not just saying that. He
No, no,
truly
exactly.
does. Yeah.
He really does. He impacts so many people. Um, so that's my biggest like struggle right now. I mean, of course, the back brace, I never wanted to I just it was not fun. I took a photo of him the first time he ever had it on, and it's just like the look on his face is how my
Mm,
heart feels every day. Because
yeah.
I mean, I'm in control of putting it on. He can't put it on himself. It's got to be me or Justin.
Yeah.
It has to be
Yeah.
put on perfectly, like in a very specific way. And no, I don't want to strap him in it, but it's like,
Yeah.
you know what, honey, we got to try. We got to get in some hours today. We need to help your spine. Maybe we can try to prevent surgery. We are real with him to a level of that we feel is suitable for him, but
Yes.
we're open with him. We have to be, because we don't know any other way. We're not going to
No.
sugarcoat it. We're not going to lie to you
You don't
ever.
you don't want to hide things, and then
No,
and then they come up, in a bigger way down the road.
you
And
got it.
I
No way.
mean, I would love for you to share, because I love this, is what you would like listeners to know that you feel would enlighten them to other families that have. And let me ask you, is special needs, quote unquote, a term that is liked, not liked? What, I know there's so many different ones.
I
What
know it.
is, I love unique because I think that's what they are. Uh,
Yeah.
but what is there terminology that doesn't hurt someone's feelings? I guess I'm trying to say.
I think it's different for every person and every family. I think
What is
everybody
it for
has,
you? What do you prefer people say?
I
Or
mean,
do you
most of
ever
the
say I'm a
time,
special needs mom?
I say I'm a medical mama and my
Okay.
son has extra needs and he is a unique child.
I love that. That's beautiful. And that's,
And I think special is so, it could mean I don't know,
it's a
to
broad
a child.
term. Yeah.
Right, it's broad. And then honestly, when I'm talking to my daughter, oh, your brother has special needs. Well, then what? I'm not special.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
such a good point. That's why
I've
I asked that, because
I've gotten away from that as Madeline's gotten older.
yeah, so many times we just don't know what to say. And I think, like
Right.
all the listeners out there, people don't mean harm or any
No, never.
disrespect. A lot
No,
of times we just don't know. So that's why I wanted to
exactly.
ask, but share with the listeners, one of the things that you shared with me that would be such a sweet spot. So just tender to your family when you're out in public.
Well, it's different every day, but yes, I mean, Owen is in a wheelchair. That's how he gets around, and everybody is impressed. He's popping wheelies and hopping up curbs, and I mean, we put him in his chair at 2 for a reason, because we knew that
Yes.
walking would be a big struggle for him. And now he has a sport wheelchair. We've actually gotten him into some sports events and things. So he's met some friends, but we definitely, you don't see a sweet kid with a big beaming smile like Owen every day in a chair. zipping around like he's got not a care in the world. Um, so, we get a lot of stares, and a lot of children will come up and just touch the chair or his wheels or whatever. And, we have taught Owen to speak up. We say, hey, this is your legs. If you don't want somebody touching your body or your legs or your chair, you need to speak up. Because, yes, we are always on a spotlight, it appears, like when we're out in public. Um, even adults, if people are excessively staring, we're just, I make sure I connect eyes with them and say, hi, how are you guys? You having a good day? Just start with words, because the staring, he feels it, he sees it, and he'll say, Mom, why are they staring? And I said, well, honestly, they're not used to seeing such a cool kid in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's not very frequent. You see that, but talk to us, say something, or even just say hi, hi, and walk by. And if you want to continue to stare, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah. Or even, hey, cool wheelchair, and
right.
talk to Owen,
Yes.
about something that could
A
engage
positive
him.
interaction, because a
Yes.
staring is kind of a passive or
Yeah.
almost negative in a way that
Right.
that's kind of how we feel. But there's a lot of great instances too, like Madeline. We take her to gymnastics, and we take Owen with on Fridays, and there's this one boy gymnast who's probably 10, and he walks by Owen and gives him a fist bump, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like, just, hey bud, how are you
Yeah.
doing? I mean, that's it. That's the positive stuff. And Owen talks about it for the rest of the day, because he feels like he's seen,
Yes.
you
And
know?
that is so important. He
Yeah.
just wants to feel
Staring is more
seen.
passive, and I get it. We're all a
Yeah.
little uncomfortable because the moms and the parents are like, oh my gosh, what happened? What,
Right.
you know, we have the analytical minds of the adults, and then the kids are just like, never
Yeah.
seen that before, so it's just, honestly,
Well,
it
and
kind
the
of depends
innocence
on,
of kids as they stare, they're just like,
yeah,
why don't they look, like we do or
right.
whatever? And it's that innocence. But if we can educate
Yeah.
parents
Yeah.
when they're out, if they go in a restaurant, they see someone
Yes,
in a wheelchair, talk to your kids, hey, say hi to him, tell him you love his
absolutely.
chair, tell him you love his shirt,
If
and
he can
just
talk,
engage with him and be
yeah.
his friend. And I think that goes with any, and I love that you shared that with us, because I think it will help as we go forward, everybody that's listening, to be able to do that instead of just staring, even though we mean no harm.
Absolutely. No, we always know there's no ill intent or anything like that. And some parents are like, what's wrong with him? I mean,
Yeah.
they'll just be ballsy and ask,
Yeah.
what happened to
Right.
him? Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna have, that's cool. I mean, most days
Yeah.
I'm like, he was born with spina bifida. And then, we're walking along and we kind of just pass the moment or what have you. But I mean, it just depends. Some kids are like, why is his head so big? I mean, we get asked the most random things from
Yeah. I
from day
imagine
to day.
kids too. There's not a lot of filter on kids.
Filter.
Yeah.
You know what? But that's real world, and we're good with
Yeah.
that, because we're trying to prepare Owen for that, because we're only carrying this for him. We're trying to educate him so he can
Yeah.
take it all on
Yeah.
himself.
Well, tell me, as we start to wrap up, tell me how people can come alongside, and not even just your family as much, but come alongside and help any family that is also medical mamas and daddies going through these same things. What would be, when people go, how can I help? How do you answer that? And what would that be for you?
Wow, that's that changes so frequently. So I think that's the reason why us medical parents have such a hard time answering that, because
Yeah.
our life changes,
You don't
like
know day to day.
well, maybe not day to day anymore. Like when Owen was young, the first 4 years, I would say it was changing like all the time. But now we have a little bit more consistency. Sometimes we're just like, we have no idea, because we don't know what to expect at the end of the day or what have you. I mean, there's not a whole lot people can do hands on for our family per se. I mean, we're always open to, of course, praying has just brought us so much um love and success for the things that we've endured so far. But I mean, and I don't know, just check in with the parents. If you're wondering, text or call.
What about things like, I mean,
Mhm.
things that come to mind, some a little standard, but what
Sure.
about if someone provided house cleaning for you or meals, or can you do date nights? Like someone to stay with them. And I know Shauna's done that, when they're in town, but
Right, and that's about the only time because honestly, from sun up to sundown, there's medical intervention, and at the end of the
right,
day, it's the longest process for us. For I get Owen to bed by 8:30 or 9, but I mean, I start the routine around 7, 7:30. So I it's hard to do a date night, but if we do, it would be during the day. Like when Sean is in town, we'll escape for a few hours during the day, or date nights are tough. So Justin and I just kind of create that time ourselves.
right.
We've just kind of learned over time that that's the only way we're really going to be able to do that. Meals are always a good thing or welcomed. I cook a whole lot anyways, but um, you know, we sometimes go out to eat, but not very much, just, for one reason or another. But um, I mean, house cleaning, again, it's like very personal basis or whatever. It just
Hmm.
I don't like a lot of strangers in my home
Yeah. I get that,
around all my I don't know. Um, so it's just it's ever evolving, the assistance. I know people always want to know what can we do, and it's just like I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
That
I know that's
that's
not what you want to hear, but
no, because I know it is different for everyone.
it really
And
is.
and I
It's
think my point in it I would want to come across is whatever that looks like for a family out there, just ask. Don't be
yeah,
afraid to ask because
exactly. That's it.
people want to help.
They
And
do.
sometimes you just don't know the best way to do that. And,
They do.
just ask or just say, hey, I'm bringing you guys a meal on this night or,
Right. Or what can I get you for this day? You pick it.
right,
Yes, that's fine.
right.
That's part of it is just make a decision. Say, hey, I want to
Yes.
do this day. What day of the week works for you? What
Yeah.
time? And it's done. Like
Because you don't want to have to make one more decision,
that's it.
And
That
it's
is a
like,
big part of it because
yeah,
we'd
just
rather
put
I
that out there for them and say,
yeah,
I'm gonna do DoorDash for you guys tonight.
right.
But that's kind of what I think about with that.
Yeah.
Take it off their plate. I think that goes for anyone too that's gone through any kind of procedures, cancers, surgeries, whatever.
Yeah, you
When
got it.
people and
Long
just
recoveries,
just tell them
difficult.
how you're going to help. And so, um, well, as we finish here, is there anything that we have not covered that you want to put out there for anyone um, that might encourage them through your story? And because I almost even feel like we haven't done enough justice to you and Justin and your incredible dedication, commitment, perseverance, strength, selflessness in all your parenting through this. And with that said, knowing it's what we were handed in life and we
Yeah.
are going to take it with all we can, but the faith that y'all have exhibited in that and the way you and Justin come together and you work as a team, and like you said, you keep things flexible in your jobs and everything you do. It's truly, as an outsider sitting back and watching, it's truly one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and it makes you go, I could never do that. But
But you
if you're in,
could.
right, exactly. And
Totally can.
I
Anybody can do
just
this.
I just want the listeners to really get in here and understand just the sacrifices all parents will make, for the
Right.
children and the things you all have done. And you
And
know?
that's what I would say, that's accurate, that it's just sacrifices look different for each family. And
Hmm.
it's still us, we're just parents of a really unique child. Um,
And a little spunky girl.
oh, oh, she's amazing. And, Justin was always like, we're going to have a girl. Like before we were even pregnant with Owen, he's like, well, we're going to have a girl at some point. So he has these inclinations, these thoughts, Justin, and he's always right. But Madeline came second, and she's really given us a dose of, I hate the word normalcy, but it's true.
Yes,
We needed a
yes.
dose of that, and we've
Mhm.
received it. We've been blessed again with her, and I could not do this without Justin. Like hands down, it is absolute teamwork,
Mhm.
and that's why we're so successful.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we rely on our faith and our family and our friends, but first and foremost, he and I are just, we're seamless. It has taken some time. We have gone through some really rough times in a marriage, but I mean, that's everybody.
Yes.
It, it's
Yes,
it's
that's all
just
circumstances,
it's
all
all
marriages.
all
Yeah.
marriage, but I mean,
Mm.
seriously, it was, God knew exactly what he was doing when we met, and then what we have been given and blessed with and stressed with at times, but we
Yeah.
come together, and man, we kill it. We kill
And
it every day.
you do, and I can attest to that just from
And
sitting by on the sidelines.
I, I feel pretty great that we do so well. I mean, we've made many sacrifices, and that's okay, because we're repaid every day with
Mhm.
these beautiful kids who just are, they're going to go out and they're going to conquer the world and in their own ways, and I
Yes.
can't wait to see what they can do. So
Yeah. Well, I know we can't wait either. And I just thank you so much for coming on here and spending this time. And, I'm just reminded of Jesus's love for us, no matter what, and that he equips us with the strength
that's
we
it.
need to endure all that comes our way. And your family just gives us all encouragement in how we walk in holy boldness and faith, no matter what life throws at us.
Yeah.
And your family is just such a beautiful picture of that. And I thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to include in show notes anything that we think would be good links to help people.
Sure.
And just
Absolutely.
thank you for being here, and just thank you for sharing your story about your beautiful family.
Oh, I'm happy to, and it comes with emotion, as you know, and see it, that will never change.
Yeah, yeah.
Being a mom, but thank you for having me, and I'm honored that you thought of me so quickly and in the beginning of your podcast journey. And I think you also have such a wonderful gift for what you're doing. You're sharing stories of such impactful people, just getting it out there, because if we don't educate, we don't know. And if
Yeah.
being a medical mom, I know I'm not alone. I'm a part of a few social media groups, and that's pretty much the only reason I use them. And we help each other out. We come together, and we know we're not alone, even if we're across the country, but we're all dealing with the same things and issues day in and day out. And it's just so comforting to know that there's others who are willing to listen and help, and just be there for you, or say a prayer if they can't
Yeah.
empathize in any way. And you know what?
Exactly. I mean,
That's
God
it.
calls us, he gives us our
That's it.
stories to
So
share
thank
and
you
help
for
others.
helping us, educate one another, because
Yeah,
there's nothing better.
absolutely.
I'm
Well,
happy.
I can't wait to follow up down the road with
Absolutely.
Owen's life and updates. But until then, thank you for sharing, and we'll circle back sometime soon and share more.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.